Today's Legal on 4, selling or buying a home. That real estate contract can be tricky. We know it's important for people to understand the legal issues, especially on such a big purchase. Realtors use a standard form contract which covers the most important issues. Our legal contributor is here to break it all down for us. Craig, welcome once again.
Thank you very much.
This can be a scary process, especially for those people who maybe have never purchased a home, but even those of us who have,
it can be overwhelming. The contract itself is very dense and full of all that legalese, and when it comes time to sign the documents at the title company, they're even lengthier. But there's really just a few very important points people need to focus on for their own protection.
Okay, so let's get right to it. First, I guess let's focus on the seller, and then we'll get to maybe the buyer.
The seller. We're going to talk, first of all, one of the things you have to be aware when you sign the contract with the buyer, if you're the seller, the buyer is going to have this period, this inspection period of about 10 days where they can inspect the property and back out of this. We'll talk about this in a second with a buyer. But just know that once you get that contract signed, essentially until that time period goes by, you really don't have a binding deal from your end. The other weird thing to think about is this disclosure statement you have to do as a seller, where you have to answer all these questions about the property and let the buyer know if there's any problems you know about. Now, human nature when you're selling something is not to point out the bad experience you've had with it.
You want to talk that place
up. Exactly. So, but what you've got to realize is that from a legal perspective, covering up things that you know about may be one of the only ways you end up liable for future problems that the buyer might have. So even though you might not feel good telling them about the termites you had or the scorpion you found or the leaks in the roof, letting them know about it ahead of time is really your legal protection, that they don't come back and sue you for hiding that.
And how could they prove that you knew about it?
Well, that's what the lawyers are for, that want to fight about it. But you'd probably be surprised what people can come up with, you know, if they find that, hey, you know, you did have someone out here.
Okay, so are we finished with the seller?
Yeah, so those are things to think about.
I guess from the buyer's perspective, because that's where I am right now, I see lots of listings where it says no one's ever lived in this house. You know, it's obviously an investment thing, being sold as is, and that kind of freaks me out because it's almost like they're saying, we don't know what's wrong with it.
Exactly,
you know?
Especially the banks selling it, they've never been there and stuff, and the state selling it, things like that, those would all come under that. So you might not have that seller's disclosure statement, and this is where that inspection period that you have in the contract that says, look, normally it's 10 days, although that can be changed between the buyer and seller. You've got that time to check out the property and make sure there's nothing wrong with it. And that's why you normally hire a home inspector, and you can have people that do it all, or you can have people that look at specialized systems and check out the sewer line and check out the roof. But that's your opportunity to, you know, to kick the tires as much as you can to make sure there's no problems with it. Because once that time period goes by, you know, you've got a set contract and those things are going to be your problem. On the other hand, during that period, you can go back to the seller and say, look, I need you to fix this or I'm going to walk away, or maybe it's such a big problem, I'm just out of this deal completely.
And then they have the power to either say, okay, we'll fix it or we won't, and depending on how much you love the house, then
you have to make that decision.
So tricky.
It is, but take that opportunity to make sure, because that's your time. You don't want to find out about it later.
Bottom line, do your research, do your homework, and pay attention to those deadlines because they're important.
Exactly.
Craig, great information. If you want more information, you want to know about Craig's tips, very important, go to our website, kvoa.com, and just click on News 4 at 4.